What is going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rage, back with another Outriders video to bring to you, and today we're actually going to be looking over the firepower version of the triple turret Technomancer that we were looking at last week. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because a few of you actually did mention in the comment section that you would be interested in this actually being made, and it's not something I've never really delved into myself, to be fair. When it came to inflicting freeze, when it came to like the Borealis and all that, I've always relied more on the cryo wave, all that kind of thing, cold snap, and to be able to inflict the freeze a bit more reliably, so I don't have to worry about AI or anything like that. But it was quite refreshing. I managed to give it a go. I've managed to use the blighted turret. I've managed to use the cryo turrets, and they do a decent enough job. I guess I can't really complain. Now, I see a lot of people out there that already brings builds like these, so I wanted to be able to bring my version across to yourself, so you have something to be able to compare against, and you can let me know where you think I'm going right, where you think I'm going wrong, all that kind of good stuff. So without further ado, let's get into the build. Okay, so as always, let's have a quick look into what I'm currently using in terms of gear, what I'm currently using for the skill tree, and all the pieces of equipment and all that kind of good stuff. So let's press into our inventory, let's have a quick look. So you'll notice on the left that necessarily our firepower and our anomaly power aren't necessarily the highest when it comes to this, and I do think that's mainly because we are using a bit of middle tree, just to be able to get our cooldowns back a little bit quicker when it comes to the cryo turrets. Now, because this is a triple turret build, I am trying to use the cryo turrets as much as possible to be able to inflict the freeze, which then affects our Borealis set. The main reason as to why our firepower is so low is, like I said, we are planning to go into middle tree a little bit just to be able to help out with the other turrets. But you will see higher firepower if you do go primarily top tree, because obviously your blighted turret will obviously give you a 40% weapon damage bonus every single time it's cast out, and that just basically allows you to be able to refresh it, but it also allows you to be able to grab all those damage nodes that are actually in the top tree. So don't be put off by the stats that you can see on here. I'm still able to hit for crits of in excess of 1 million, so it's definitely not a bad shout. By all means, you're definitely still going to be able to do a lot of damage. When it comes to the gear, I primarily used a burst AR. Now, obviously, this is quite notorious for firepower Technomancers to be using burst ARs, and what you will really want to look for in terms of your rolls will be something like crit damage, long range damage, and potentially close range damage if you can get that rolled. Now, obviously, I can't get mine to do that, and I do have a very low firepower one, so by all means, try and get yourself a higher firepower one. You definitely want to go for something like crit damage, because armor pierce won't necessarily help you when you're using blighted rounds, and you can also have close range damage, like I said, to be able to help you out with those close range engagements. And the reason why I primarily use this is because I've got my Dark Sacrifice on there, which is pretty much standard when it comes to a firepower Technomancer, and I've also gone for improved freezing bullets. And the reason why I've gone for that is because it gives me another way to be able to proc on the target that I'm shooting every now and then, to be able to proc the Borealis kind of set, because obviously I'm inflicting freeze by myself and I don't have to worry about another skill or anything like that. I can use my cryo turrets to be able to inflict the freeze, and then I've also got my gun every now and that's also inflicting the freeze. By all means, you can mix this up and go for an absolute zero. Mine currently has Fortress on there because I was testing out to see how much extra damage we can actually do with the turret, but I would probably recommend swapping that out for something like Dark Sacrifice, just because you're the main damage dealer when it comes to this. Your turrets are there to be able to inflict the status, to be able to inflict it, so you inflict more damage when it comes to it. If we go from there over to the armor pieces, we do have a 3-piece of the Borealis, so we've gone for the head, the legs, and the gloves. So if we have a quick look at the head, so obviously we've gone for our twins, so we can have two cryo turrets out, and I do think this is probably one of the main reasons as to why this build does so well, because you're able to inflict so much freeze in pretty much everywhere, and it's very, very nice to be able to have that status just inflicted everywhere. Normally I would go for, like if I was using a firepower and a Borealis, I would go for cold snap, because then I don't have to worry about like the AI or anything like that. But the turrets actually do a decent job of being able to inflict freeze, and they also do a little bit of damage as well, which actually helps you with your healing and to be able to keep yourself healthy. So on top of that, we've also gone for Euthanizer, because we are using blighted rounds, and therefore we are inflicting toxic, so therefore we might as well deal extra damage when it comes to that. So it's a nice multiplier to definitely grab. When it comes to the chest, because it comes with cold snap on top of it for the chest, I tried to steer clear from that. So I've gone for Interrogator's Jacket, but the main rolls that you're looking for are bonus firepower, cooldown reduction, long range damage. So long range damage will obviously help you out, and the firepower will help you out, and the cooldown reduction really really helps to be able to keep those turrets constantly stocked up into better positions, and you're pretty much ready to go. I have messed around with increased damage, so the turret shot deals additional 5,493 damage every single shot, and this, like I said, this is brilliant for being able to keep yourself healthy, because you benefit from the damage that the turrets actually deal. And then I've also gone for crit stack on top of that, where basically every single critical shot for a 5-second stacking effect that increases anomaly power and firepower. So the anomaly power will go straight back into your turrets to be able to deal a little bit more damage, and the firepower obviously increases how much damage you're able to deal. We've also gone for the waistcloth, which comes with, so we've gone for Sharp Eye on there, so killing enemies while aiming down sights gives us a firepower bonus for 20 seconds, stacks up to 3 times, and this really just helps us to be able to roll over and actually be able to stack our firepower up, so really nice, so we are able to hit those 1 million or 1.1 million crits that you'll see in the gameplay that's going to be coming up shortly. We've also gone for freeze and boost because we are planning to inflict a lot of freeze, so therefore we boost our damage to enemies inflicted by freeze by 15%. If we go from there to the gloves of the Borealis Monarch, we've also gone for Shatter, so we get another 25% damage to enemies inflicted by freeze, and I've gone for Ice component on the Blighted turret, because the toxic on it, I don't necessarily feel like really helps me out too much. I want to be able to inflict as much freeze as possible to be so consistent with the Borealis, and therefore with the toxic, I'm already inflicting that with my blighted rounds, so why do I need to have a turret that also does it as well? So I've gone for that just to be able to help inflict more freeze, and obviously it draws the aggro, so it's actually quite weighted quite nicely. I feel like it inflicts freeze more often than it inflicts toxic, but that's just personal. That's probably just more of like a placebo kind of effect on my kind of part. And then lastly, we've gone for a purple set of boots, and these are just my standard firepower ones, which come with bonus firepower, long range damage, and cooldown reduction, and which come with critical analysis, so increases our critical damage by 15%, and trick up the sleeve as standard so that we can consistently replenish our blighted rounds. When it goes from there over to the skills, we do obviously have our Blighted turret on a very short cooldown, we have our Cryo turret on a 13.1 second cooldown, and we have Blighted rounds, which we're never planning to be able to lose, so this cooldown is kind of negligible. There is obviously a tier 3 mod that allows you to be able to reduce the Cryo turret's cooldown by half, and you could technically find a reason to be able to use that instead of the extra damage for the Cryo turret, but if I'm being honest with you, it doesn't really, you don't get any benefit really from having that out there a little bit quicker, especially not 6.5 seconds quicker, and the cryo turrets last more than long enough to be able to sustain in a whole firefight, so really you don't need to benefit from that whatsoever. So feel free to be able to mess about with that mod slot, but I found that extra damage really kept me healthy. If I go from there into the class tree, it's a little unconventional, but so the idea is that we've gone for middle to be able to grab our gadgeteers, so that we've got our cryo turrets back a little bit quicker, so it does help out a tiny bit, so it doesn't take up a mod slot. It also allows me to grab Wipeout, which I do think Wipeout is a very, very nice perk to be able to grab on the skill tree. We've gone for Exposing Frost because we're primarily dealing freeze damage, especially with our turrets, so therefore every single time freeze is inflicted, we can apply Vulnerable. You can mess about with taking that and put it over and exposing Toxin, because obviously you are planning to use Blighted rounds, and therefore technically you are inflicting Toxic just as consistently, if not more so. So you could mess about and you could put that over there, so but that's personal preference. I just found that the Cryo, because we're planning to use our Borealis, therefore it just kind of like makes it better in that kind of sense. Going up from there, Blur Screen is just purely to be able to grab us into the top tree. So we increased our weapon damage, we decreased our rate of distance by 3 meters. I do think that's technically better than having Purge, just because it allows your damage to be a bit more consistent, and it allows your assault rifle to be able to deal more damage for a longer period of time. So that's just personal preference. Feel free to be able to experiment with Purge as well there. I've gone for increased weapon damage, increase our assault damage by 12%, increase armor piercing just to be able to grab us a little bit. So sharpshooter, and then basically all the way as standard, all the way to empowering and tenor. I do pick up 2 sides of power just because I think that this is a really nice perk to be able to grab as well. Similar to Wipeout, I do think that the increased damage that you're able to deal is just top notch. I do think that that is one of the best kind of like perks to be able to grab from the whole skill tree, so therefore yeah, I'll always try and pick up 2 sides of power, and that pretty much wraps up the build. So it just to give you an idea on stats, I'll let you have a screenshot and I'll let you have a quick look through that as well. Now I'm just going to have a quick talk through the gameplay. I'm not going to show the full level of City of Nomads, one because it is a bit of a long level, and two because I do take on Harbinger Hammer, Handler of Heads, We Will Slay. It was, overall, I was quite surprised as to how good this build actually was. Now, I do miss the versatility of using Cold Snap and using it with Icicle Storm to be able to do like detonations and be able to do crowd control that way. But this is more of like a sustained crowd control, which is very nice to be able to see. And the Blighted Rounds do more than good enough of a job, especially on the Burst AR, to be able to deal and tackle with everything that can come this way. I do think this build would work really nicely with when paired with other Technomancers that are running similar builds. Especially all the Borealis kind of sets, and also being able to throw out all their ice turrets as well. I do think that barely anything will be able to move if that was the case, but overall this was a very good, decent build. I wouldn't necessarily say it's top tier. I definitely wouldn't say it's going to be one of those that speedrunners are going to be using or anything like that. But overall, it's a lot of fun. It definitely has a lot of survivability. It definitely has more than enough damage to be able to compete and be able to take down enemies. And I mean, I was kind of surprised when I was able to hit 1 million or 1.1 million in a single crit, but you know, overall, it just really is testament to show that this build can definitely handle pretty much anything you can throw at it. Whether it be elites, whether it be mobs or anything like that, everything's just going to get frozen on the screen, everything's just going to get toxic, and you're just going to be inflicting all those damage multipliers as well. When it comes to your turrets, though, they're not really going to be inflicting any kind of real damage other like just outside of the status that they're going to be applying. So don't rely on them too much. They are a very nice option in terms of getting some damage back, in terms of like healing and all that, but yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. So we'll just wrap the level up there, and the main test really was Harbinger Hammer, just because primarily he's just a big massive bullet sponge, and obviously you are able to hit the critical shot, but the main real thing that kind of annoyed me with him was the fact that he will just continuously lunge at you. You have more than enough health to be able to survive a couple of attacks. You definitely need to be able to time your rolls, but he doesn't necessarily go after your turrets as often as I would have liked him to, so they don't really help that much. He does get froze quite easily by a few of them as well, but obviously then draws some resistance to it. But outside that, it was a decent enough fight. I mean, it wasn't too troubling as such, but you know, he is a boss at the end of the day, and if you're not supposed to be struggling against the bosses, then why are you supposed to be struggling? So I do feel like maybe I would be able to take this build into Eye of the Storm to be able to test out, especially since it's able to handle the Harbinger, and I feel like Harbinger Hammer is a bit more deadly than Yagak. But overall, yeah, I'm pretty impressed. Now, this build was able to finish off City of Nomads in 10 minutes and 40 seconds, and while that isn't really going to be breaking any speed records, it definitely was one of the nicer, more relaxing kind of versions of the runs that I've done when it comes to City of Nomads. But when it came to Harbinger Hammer, it did take quite a bit of time, so just keep that in mind, that this isn't going to be one to be able to speed through levels or anything like that, but it will let you comfortably be able to get through every single level. And like I said, I do think that it's really going to help pair in quite nicely with other Technomancers doing the exact same thing, so I do think this would actually be a very nice co-op build as well. Obviously there's no real healing, but you have your intrinsic healing ability, and that definitely helps you out as well. So as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will leave up the datasheet at the end of the video just to be able, so you have that available to be able to copy, and you can just take a screenshot of that at your own leisure. As always, thank you so much to the Babylonian family. It really does help out, and obviously their donations. And if you want to get your name at the end of every single one of our videos, then make sure you click that join button that's found next to the subscribe button, which you should have already clicked, by the way. And yeah, it just really helps out. It starts as little as 99p, and every single penny of that goes straight back into the channel to really help out with the community and being able to help out ourselves out to be able to make our videos a lot better for you. That just pretty much leaves me to say thank you all so much. Keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on the next video.